Welcome to Sensitive Success. I'm excited to say welcome to Zara Taulelei. Welcome, Zara.
Welcome. Thank you. Did I say welcome just now?
Perfect. So excited to have you here. And Zara is a film director from Berlin, living not far from me here in the far north of New Zealand, Aotearoa. And now she is working as an ancestral lineage healing practitioner, intuitive healer, and Akashic record reader. She's also an apprentice with Māori Tohunga Viremu Nyanya to practice Mahi Wairoa. Feels like there's quite a distance between film directing in Berlin and now learning about Maori spiritual work. So please tell us a bit more about your journey and how you come to do what you do.
Yes, thank you, Frida. I'm very glad to be here. Yes, it is quite a journey from Germany to Aotearoa, as you know as well, coming from Europe. I've been living in New Zealand now. Like I came here for the first time 10 years ago, and I've been living here now consistently for 5 years. Yes, so I trained as a film director in Berlin, in Germany, and I really loved that. It was like a passion of mine. I really loved film. I loved Berlin, and I loved working as a film director. And I thought that is what I would do forever. Yeah, things just started to change, but it was more like it wasn't I did not decide consciously to leave my career and to set out to travel the world. It was not like a decision that came from here. It was really something else driving it, like spirit really driving me to do this. And I set out to travel and came to New Zealand as well in that first year of travel. And things just started changing for me. I was traveling as a film director with my camera and with my film even. And wherever I went, I went to the South Pacific, to the Pacific Islands, and shared my movie with the people. And, always filming, always taking photos, doing interviews, and always seeing everything in a film and like in a project. And I really like New Zealand. I really like the people that I connected with here. And also, I was very moved or very called once I was here to the Maori culture. I was lucky to be invited onto a marae. I was lucky to be introduced to beautiful people who took me in and just shared a lot of their culture with me. And I honestly I didn't know anything when I came from Germany about Te Reo Māori, the language, the people, the culture. But once I heard my first karakia and also my first waiata, that is the song, I just felt really moved. And I had this, just sort of, I know this, something in me knows this song, this sounds. It felt really familiar. And I decided I wanted to spend as much time here as possible and connect with the culture. And I stayed for 1 year. And then I kept on traveling, and there's a lot, so I'm just cutting it short. So a couple of years later, I am living in South America, in Peru at that time, and I was working with plant medicine and apprenticing with the plant medicine maestra in the Amazon. And that was where I also met my husband, Zara Taulelei, who is from New Zealand. He's a Samoan Kiwi, so he's from Samoa and New Zealand. We met in South America, and I had been to Aotearoa, and I had also been to the South Pacific. So it was quite interesting to meet away from the places where he's from and where I had been. And yeah, after a while, we just knew that we would come back here to Aotearoa and to be closer in the Pacific. And also we knew that there was some work that we're going to do. We didn't quite know back then what it exactly was or who was the teacher we were supposed to meet. But yeah, so when we came to Aotearoa, we then made contact with Viramuniania, who is the tohunga that we've been apprenticing with for the last 3 years, and teaches and trains people in Mahi Wairua. He's one of the last tahungas, or of the tahungas who actually shares his knowledge and has a deep interest on passing on that knowledge and also maintaining the wisdom and supporting the people with it. And so we've been very fortunate to learn with him and from him. And yes, so maybe that brought it a little bit from film director to New Zealand and Mahi Wairua doing spiritual work now. So.
I love that. What a beautiful journey. So this is the Sensitive Success podcast. What does success mean to you?
So it's funny. I'm a Capricorn. That is my sun sign. And I think Capricorns can be quite success orientated. And I know that I'll do have that thinking sometimes, Also as a film director, that was important to me. In a way, it was important to me to have a film that was screened in a festival that had a good, that had good critique. Like it was something, I was goal driven in a way. But then things changed on many levels. So, like you could say success it is not material for me anymore. I think that's what I want to say. It can be material and there's nothing wrong with that. But if I'm really feeling into what success means to me, then it's not on a material level anymore. It probably never really was. So what is my state of health? What is my mental state? How is my spiritual connection? And also, I think real success for me means if I'm living my dharma, like if I'm living what I'm supposed to be doing here on earth. And if I feel that is in alignment, that feels like that's a good success.
Love that. So have you always felt, because you said you loved the filmmaking as well, have you always felt that you lived in alignment, or is that something you had to work with?
I feel it's something that's been like a pillar, so it's like thriving to be as authentic as possible. I was that also with the films that I was making, so I wasn't working for the big industry. It was more art film and, writing my own films and sharing my message in the film. So being true in your authentic expression, I think that is something that always has guided me, or that I'm thriving to be. And then I think along the way, it just changed for me how I was able to do that. Because as a film director, to some point, I was, and I loved it. And then it just, I really feel like it was more like my ancestors being like, okay, actually, you have to do a few other things too. So moving me into a different direction.
Love that. Beautiful. Another thing you mentioned in your what you wrote to me before we jumped on here was that you have synesthesia.
Synesthesia. Mm-hmm.
Tell us a bit more about that.
So probably most people maybe have heard about that or know about that from that a lot of musicians have that, or like famous composers or painters or artists. So it can show up in different ways. So for me, my synesthesia has always been that I see colors with letters and numbers, for example, and also when hearing certain words or smelling, like with all my senses, it's connected with colors and images. And that has always been like that. And also the color code is not something that I consciously chose. It was always, so for example, your name, I'm just using that as an example. So the A in my color alphabet has always been yellow, like the sun. And so that's a very dominant color. And so I can't change that. I can't decide, I would like it to be blue. So it's just how it shows up. And so therefore, it aligns with other colors or other letters, for example. and yeah, so the colors come with the names, with I think it supports me in having a good memory, but also, of course, in the work that I'm doing, um, making use of my synesthetic gifts that were obviously not supported, or like in my upbringing in Germany, there wasn't something that people were aware of, or in the school that I attended, it was quite the opposite. So when I started writing as a child, I was trying to use the right, like the same color pen for the letter that I had to write. You know, when you are in the
Mm.
first grade and you learn the alphabet and you have to write it down like 100 times the letter A, 100 times the letter O. And I was, you know, writing, my whole book was written with, you know, every word had a different color because that's how I saw it, or I still see it.
Mm.
And then, of course, it was like, well, you can't. You said you have to use one pen. You don't have time to, you know, paint the letters. So, of course, I had to adjust. You know, you learn that then quite quickly. And I also realized, oh, not everyone sees colors. I thought, you know, as a child, people see colors so that, you know, maybe your A has a different color. Everyone has a different color. That's why people like different colors. But then I realized that not everyone actually sees colors and
Mm.
works with colors, or they're not as present for them.
I just find it so fascinating how different we can work, like how different our minds work, and yeah, like the sadness of not having that expressed, and as you
Mm.
say, using it as a gift. Yeah, I love that you reconnected with that and really see it as a gift now.
Yes, I really do. I feel I always embraced it, but I, you know, it took me, like, I also didn't grow up with a name or framework for that. I remember I was probably in my late teens when I heard the first time that word synesthesia and how that's connected. And then I'm like, oh, well, I have this. You know, it wasn't like none of the teachers knew what that was, you know. Yeah, but recently, and I would say in the last 10 years through my work, I feel I've been really able to develop that more strongly, and trust it and use that even for my work. I also used and channeled it in my work as a film director, you know, like films had a certain theme for color, like the cinematographer I worked with, we worked really strongly with the moods and colors, of course, you know, it always flowed into my work. And now it's just differently connected to how I connect to my intuitive gifts. And
Mm, love that. Yeah. So when you talk about your work, do you see it as a business or how do you see it?
yes, I do see it as a sacred business.
Mm.
I would say with whatever I earn money, that's my business. And of, you know, there's often this, like when you are a healer or when you work in the healing arts, that yes, some people, you know, might not want to focus on the business, but it's like at the end, this is what I'm sharing, this is what I'm getting in energy exchange. And so yeah, this is my business.
Mm. And what do you feel is the biggest challenge to be a sensitive in business?
Probably the overwhelm, I feel.
Mm.
So, you know, creating structure maybe that works for one, you know, in a good way, in a healthy way. And I also feel that a lot of intuitive and sensitive people, you know, we can go because we have get so much information through our heads, so like through our pineal and the third eye. So we can be quite caught up in the head sometimes. And I feel it's really important to be able to ground yourself in order to thrive in your practice and in your business. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's, you know, I feel very, very grateful to be living in New Zealand and where we are, like surrounded by nature. And that's, I choose that because I know it supports me. Yeah, at this point, I cannot imagine, living again in Berlin, in the city, being surrounded by so many people. Yeah, finding environments that work for you and getting out into nature as much as possible.
Mm.
I do that regularly, even after, when I have sessions, or especially for energetic work. It's so important to go out and cleanse yourself, clear that energetic field, and nature just supports you with that. So you just have to go out. And but really, using that, scheduling that in, even if it's necessary. And for people who are not living in the bush as we, or, you can go out into the park or like take a shower, but finding grounding exercises to really come back to yourself, and also to be able to share from a place of groundedness.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I can definitely feel a shift also from living in the bush for a year now, moved from Hamilton here.
Mm.
It's really a shift and so grounding. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the biggest strength as a sensitive in business? As I asked about the challenges, I want to ask about the strengths as well.
So I would say for myself, it is having that spiritual connection, bringing that into my business, and letting that guide I feel that is the strength, because it doesn't come from the hininaru, from the mind. It comes from something bigger, or from a bigger source, and connecting to that, and being able to connect to that. I feel that a lot of people, and also a lot of business people, are lacking that. And they might, they're looking to find it, but you can't find it with here.
Mm.
And you can't find it with pushing or powering through something. It's not found in the fast paced world usually. So for people who are very sensitive, once you find your place and once you accept where you are with that, it becomes easier to be a conduit for what wants to come through you. And yes, I would say that is the strength for that I'm feeling in my business, and I imagine it could be very
Mm.
strong for others.
How do you balance that following what feels of following the spirit and the need to live in this world, to make money, to have roof over your head and all that?
Mm. Yeah, I feel that, because if you're only in the spirit world or in the upper world, then of course, people can get a little bit aloof. You know, that's why I feel it's important to stay grounded and being able to, you know, get your food from outside, and also doing things with reverence. Funny, while I'm just talking, just outside my window, there are two bulls who are fighting each other. So, speaking about grounding, and just like
Wow.
trying it out. Um, yeah, sorry, they just distracted my view because they've been like going on each other, just running in the field. It's like, in Mahiwairu, we always we talk about Orangi, which is the sky, heaven, and Papatuanuku, which is the earth. And it's about bringing these two like together and being balanced in both. If we're too strongly in one or the other, we can't be really present here. And I feel that it's a constant practice. It's something what you do on a daily basis. Like, how can you maintain your spiritual practices, for example, whatever that is to you, plus then the mundane things like cooking a meal and preparing food, cleaning up, doing all of this, and still having time to expand into your business, or like doing things like social media or doing things like a podcast, to find balance with that. It's a challenge, and I feel it can be. It's really my sense. It becomes more and more challenging with the more we hear from the outside world, the more we engage with what's around us. You can get bombarded, and especially for sensitive people, you have to have a strong boundary and decide, like, no, if you feel like you want to go off social media for a week, for some time, do that. Have boundaries with that. Don't have to answer to messages if you're not feeling good that day. Like, make yourself time and space where fits what. And you can use the moon calendar. You can use if you're a woman, your biological calendar to what is good for you, and work with that. Coming away from this patriarchal, you have to work from Monday to Friday, and then you stop, and then you have now Christmas break, and then you stop, and then you push again. It's like really coming back to what is nature telling you, and trying to live by these principles feels super supportive for how we can run our business.
Love that. And you also talk about ancestral trauma. Tell us a bit more about that work.
Yeah, so I'm an ancestral healing practitioner through the Ancestral Medicine Network. My teacher is Dr. Daniel Four, and I support people connecting with their ancestors. And so, I'm coming from Germany, so I, wasn't really brought up with a framework for ancestral reverence, and I would say most people in the Western culture are not. So I am married to an indigenous man, and I lived in a lot of different countries and engaged with indigenous cultures. So I've seen how it can be different. And that's also why I'm passionate about maintaining these paths for wisdom and this knowledge. And so during the last 10 years in my own journey of healing my ancestral traumas that I wasn't really consciously aware of, but I always felt that I could always feel that there were some really big traumas within my ancestral lineages, coming from Germany, having 2 world wars, things that were not talked about. You just inherit cultural ancestral trauma if you want or not. So, and then working with that on an unconscious level really started bringing massive healing for me on a personal level. And then, of course, through that, I also wanted to share that, and feel there's a strong need, for people to realize that you can connect with your ancestors, and that healing is possible, the repair work is possible, and we just have to, be shown how to, and connect with people who might hold that reverence, and reclaim that. For me, it's really like a reclaiming of old rites and rituals that our people, every one of our ancestors had. And of course, if you come from like the Western world, it's been buried for a long time, but it's still there, and we can connect to that knowledge. And once we tap into that, it can really enliven that person's experience of what they have been going through at this time. If it's illness, if that's depression, I've seen really big changes happening through that work, and that's why I'm really grateful to be sharing it too.
So how do we know if it's something with us, or if it's something behind us, something deeper, something older that needs to be healed?
Yeah, I would say probably most people just have a sense. So maybe you've identified it that this is yours, and then it also it can become yours because it got passed down to you, and you just accepted it to be yours, or to be part of that lineage, part of your story. So if we're not connected to our ancestors, or we don't know what actually the burdens and the blessings of the lineages are, then it's also hard to differentiate where it's coming from, you know. But it doesn't mean that you need to know your ancestry, you need to know who died of what. It's something that you can, it's an innate wisdom that is held within ourselves. You can connect to that. So it's okay to have that intellectual knowledge as well, but it's something that you feel in your bones. And it's also like in the ancestral healing, we sometimes use that term that we as the living, so we are here in this realm, the ancestors or the dead, you know, you can see them in another realm if you want. But we are the living face of our people, of our ancestors. So therefore, there is a connection if we want to or not. And then we can, you know, if there's like things that are affecting you maybe in a negative way, most people know that it's ancestral or that it could be connected to it. It's like an inner knowing where it could come from.
Do you think that we are extra perceptive as sensitives?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I also feel that, you know, most people, like, I always think everyone is born sensitive, and, you know, and then there are like maybe different levels of sensitivity that one has. And then, of course, how is that nurtured during life, and or how are you able to keep it? And then you can exercise that muscle of your intuition and your sensitivity and live accordingly to it, or the total opposite, you know. But I, I believe that everyone has an innate ability to connect to that.
So if someone feels like they do want to connect, they do want to heal that, where can they start?
So there's a lot of free material out there too from the Ancestral Medicine Network. And then, of course, you can book sessions with a practitioner, for example, to start really that work. I often say it's a bit like, imagine doing psychotherapy, but with your ancestors. That's how it felt for me in the beginning. So it's not like a one-time session, and I'm not coming and doing, and I'm also not doing the healing. I'm just holding that space because me and my people hold that space, because the healing comes from your ancestors. Like, I don't have the power to do anything there. That's, you know, the ones who, the elders have the power and the wisdom and the strength to send healing that way. So all we can do as the living, we act like a bridge by us like connecting to them and asking them for guidance and asking them for protection and for healing that can get activated. We are not doing it. We're just the ones connecting with the ones who have that power. We're like with bigger powers.
Another thing that you're passionate about and talking about, and that we can hear already, is preserving the indigenous knowledge. So, yeah, tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, you know, maybe first of all, through my husband as well. So he is Samoan, and then we lived in South America, and I lived in really different communities and saw different indigenous cultures. And I feel very grateful for that experience. And then now here in Aotearoa, working with the tohunga, and what that taught me is, you know, I feel often as people who grew up in the West, we run around and that's how I felt when I left, you know. So I thought I was okay. I was quite happy as a film director living in Berlin, but I had like some kind of inkling. It was just a sense something was missing, and I did not know what it was. I always thought, like, or always seen myself as a spiritual person, probably not in that way that I would see myself now. You know, now I have deep faith in spirit. Back then, I didn't quite know what it actually was, or what the powers were I can connect to and be supported by. Mm, and I feel most of Westerners don't have that connection because we've been like cut off from that. And so we run around and we think something is off. People have depression, all sorts of illnesses, all sorts of disconnected from the spirit world. People like acknowledge that they have a body and a mind, but spirit is like maybe religion, but what is spirit? So it's not really in alignment. And so that's how it felt for me too. And then that really changed once I accepted spirit comes first. And what does that mean? And how does that affect my life? I would say that probably most of the indigenous cultures, they all have that same pillar. They accept spirit as the power that comes first, and then the human comes, and then the mind and the body comes. And I would say in Western culture, it's the other way around. So sometimes there's a little bit of spirit that is accepted, or you can have some contact, but it's not the other way around. And I feel by my passion of preserving that is just what it did for me when I could connect back to that innate sense and knowledge and wisdom that my own people held. Of course, I feel deep reverence for the wisdom and knowledge that the indigenous people hold. And yeah, I feel it's utterly important that we preserve that and honor it. And I feel also so many people feel drawn to these teachings because they know that they've been missing something deep inside, but they just can't really word what it is.
Yeah, definitely. It really resonates coming from Sweden, which is one of the most non-believing people on earth as well. I can really feel a sense of loss and sadness around my own history and the loss of connection and knowledge around that, but also like a fear or yeah, a fear of stepping into someone else's knowledge. So how do you understand what I mean, and what do you say about that?
So do you mean fear of stepping into someone else's knowledge?
Because I feel like my knowledge, and the Swedish indigenous knowledge is gone, because it's been so long ago. And stepping into, like, especially here in New Zealand, I can feel a longing for stepping into my own lineage, because it's so present here with the Māori and the knowledge they have, but also fear of stepping into there, and because it doesn't feel like it's mine, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I understand that. And I feel that's why, I would say for me, so my own journey and my own connection with my ancestors has started taking place while not even being on my ancestral lands and being away from Germany. In a funny way, I had to be away from Germany from probably the most recent trauma, or the trauma that the recent dead were carrying was so strong that it was affecting me while I was there. And so for me, it was easier, and the longing became stronger when I was away from Germany, that I could actually connect and heal what I wasn't able to do while I was in Germany. I don't say that that's for everyone. That was my personal experience. And my connection to my people, my ancestors, who are all Germanic, or most of them, is really strong now. And I feel because of their support, because I know where I'm coming from, I know who they are, I know they have my back, I know they're guiding me. That's why maybe relate in a different way to the other ancestors. But because I know who mine are. And I feel that that is something that then people who are not having that connection and they're missing something, and then they might, they see indigenous people being very connected or maybe having that strong connection, and that can trigger, a fear or also sadness, or just not knowing actually how to change that.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
feel from the work, I know that, we, yes, we might feel that things are lost or they've been like buried for such a long time, but it is possible to connect to that wisdom and to that knowledge that your ancestors carried, even if it's very long time ago. And I know it from myself, and how that supported me in also, not feeling alone, feeling like, yes, oh, I also have people around me who want this for me, who I can call on to. And,
Mm.
and that is, something where I feel, yeah, we have to reclaim this.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing also is like really reclaim and gaining back the knowledge from our own lineage,
Mhm.
so that we can explore with other indigenous people as well, but not filling the void with others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also one important aspect I feel in the ancestral healing especially is being able to listen. And because in that process, when I guide people through that process, it's like a trance meditation where you enter a connective space where connection is possible, and so it's important to listen to what they actually have to say. And I feel if we're not able to listen to our own ancestors, how are we then able to listen to what the indigenous people have to say?
Mm.
Or to, how are we able to preserve what is still here if we're not able to listen to our own people?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Beautiful. I feel like there's so much more we could go into, but if someone wants to know more about you and your work, where is the best place to find you?
Yeah. So Instagram is a good way to find me on Moon Mirror Medicine. And then my website and the schedule site to connect with me. I offer free connection calls for everyone who's interested in my work. So I offer ancestral healing and Mahiwairua support, and also I read Akashic records. Yeah.
Beautiful. So much yumminess there. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the sensitives that are listening?
It is really your strength to be sensitive and to see, to be this sensitive being, even if it can be so overwhelming sometimes. If you're able to honor your needs first, it is such a beautiful gift and your biggest strength to be that sensitive, and then also to share from that place. It's beautiful.
Mm, love that. Beautiful. Thank you so, so much. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. I love this conversation, and thank you for the work that you do in the world. It's so important.
Thank you, Frida. Thank you so much for having me. It was really great to talk to you.